Okay, we'll just go ahead and get started. This is recorded, so for all the people that I might have forgotten to send the passcode to, I can send it to them later. But thank you all for joining us today. We hope you've had a good day. Welcome to Student Leader Selection, the panel. We're glad that you are interested in joining us for Student Leader Selection this year. We're excited that you expressed interest either through the preview form or just already submitting your application. But we wanted to provide everyone an opportunity to go ahead and have the opportunity to ask current student leaders what their experience has been like, what tips they have for the interview process, and all of that. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Marianne Jimenez. I am a senior majoring in public health from Killen, Alabama. I am a second-year Pathfinder for the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership. I participated in student leader selection 2 times, and I was a part of ambassadors and leadership and service council, but that was a long time ago. So y'all want to ask the current students right now. I'll go ahead and let my co-host introduce himself, Ram.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bukshi. I serve as a Pathfinder in the off-campus student and family engagement. A little bit about me, I'm a neuroscience major, also senior like Marianne, and I've also participated in a few student leader selections as well. I was an ambassador. I've really been ambassador with a lot of the people that are panelists, so it's kind of cool to have a little bit of a throwback. But my goal is to really increase engagement for off-campus students in the Pathfinder realm. Before we introduce our panelists, I'm gonna go ahead and drop an attendance link that just kind of helps us track like who came here today, and we can also get some feedback from you. Before I'm gonna go ahead and just drop it right now. Everyone, did y'all get it? Give the link. And without further ado, I'd say we go ahead and introduce our panelists. Anyone like to go first?
Hey everyone, my name is Xavier Turner. I'm a junior double majoring in political science and criminal justice, and I am representing the UAB Ambassador program as well as the Social Justice Advocacy Council.
Hi everyone, my name is Helen So. I'm a junior economics major from Hoover, Alabama. I am currently serving as the Vice President of the UAB Ambassador, or Vice President Education of the UAB Ambassador Program, and also a second-year mentor in the International Mentors Program.
Hey everyone, my name is Charity. I'm a senior from Mobile, Alabama, and my majors are psychology and criminal justice, and I'm representing the UAB Ambassador Program as well as Leadership and Service Council.
Hey everyone, my name is Sahar and I'm a second year at UAB. I'm majoring in genetics and I'm here representing UAB Ambassadors and the Off-Campus Student Council.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm a senior majoring in biomedical science and I'm the executive director of the University Programs Board.
Okay, well, thank you to all of our panelists for introducing themselves. We are, like we said, we already have some questions lined up for the RSVPs that you all submitted, but also feel free to go ahead and add them in the Q&A box as we're going through them. And again, if you are just coming in, there was a link dropped where we're recording attendance. So if you can just click on that, that way we can be sure to, if we miss any questions, we can go ahead and email those to you later on, and as well as send you a recording of this. So let's just go ahead and start with the first question that was submitted. Have you found a good way to balance school and involvement? So this is free for anyone to answer.
I can give this one a try. So something that I really think about a lot is making sure that the things I get involved in are things that I have a lot of passion behind, because then it makes it easier to make sure you're just getting involved in stuff that you actually really care about and that you're willing to put in extra effort for. So for example, I care a lot about service, which is why I decided to do ambassadors. And so when I do have to make those time commitments, it does feel a little bit easier and more balanced because I do care about it. And it just keeps you from getting overcommitted to things that you might not like care about that much. It just keeps you kind of grounded and helps you find a good balance.
I think also adding on to that, one tip to keep in mind before you plan on joining organizations or you're planning your next semester is to already plan out some of the hours that you want to commit to each organization. Definitely, that is a way to make sure that you don't overbook yourself, and also prioritization of both your academics and your orgs is really important in terms of um, per week, if one week tends to be busier academically versus your orgs, you need to make sure that you're having your priorities straight and make sure that you can devote enough time to all of your involvements.
Thank you, Helen. If there's nothing else for that question, we're going to go ahead and move on. What are some projects that your organization has worked on in the past? It'd be cool if you could talk about something you've done during COVID as well, and then maybe some of your more significant projects from before.
I can take this one. So UPB, before COVID, we did a lot of large events, things like the Blazer Welcome Bash, and yeah, the talent show, things like that. And so it's definitely changed a lot since COVID. We can't really do a lot of in-person things. We can't really have those large events where we do free food, games, and all of that. So one thing that we've done last semester and then this semester as well, we've kind of done like take and make kind of events where you can stop by, grab a kit. Last semester we did study buddies, so it was make your own stuffed animal. You just swing by, pick up that, bring it back to your dorm or your house, and make your own stuffed animal, which I think was a huge hit among students. But yeah, we've been trying out different virtual things, watch parties, stuff like that. So it's a lot different this year for sure, but hopefully we'll get back to the normal and being able to throw larger events.
Well, I'll speak for the Leadership and Service Council. So prior to COVID, we hosted the signature service events for the university, and that includes Into the Streets, Rise Against Hunger, MLK Day of Service, and Into the Streets in the spring as well. And so obviously that has been affected by COVID since we can't have large in-person events. But we did have into the Streets this past fall with smaller groups, and we just met up at the service site, and we plan to do that in the spring this semester as well.
For the UAB Ambassadors, I know that our approach to the organization kind of altered a little bit. In previous years, we focused not necessarily with the student body directly, but more of like the alumni, donors, and friends of the institution. Whereas this year, because of the lack of events, we have been expanding a little bit more towards student body too as well. So we started helping like with an event that the College School of Business did with their business students, especially like freshmen and sophomores. And then we're also trying to volunteer more. And so I know Helen, Jenna, Thunvi, and Ashley have been really working on crafting some more volunteer opportunities for us to get those service hours and those volunteer hours just to make the experience still as enjoyable and close to a traditional year as possible. So those are some of the things that we've been focusing on this year.
Thank you for that. I will say there's always a lot of collaboration with my experience in the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership. Like Into the Streets is such a huge event. So a lot of times, the student leaders are asked to participate as site leaders, or get their organization to participate. So there's always a lot of collaboration, and there's always like you're not restricted just to your organization's events. You're always welcome to whatever the offices are hosting. So I would say like if there's one thing that's really calling you, like make sure you do it because there's always the opportunity for it. But we'll go ahead and go to our next question. So I guess everyone can answer this one is why did you choose to apply to your respective organization?
So I can speak on the behalf of international mentors since we have quite a few ambassadors in this panel. But for international mentors, I found myself being really drawn to kind of the international student population and just getting to know them. And one of the biggest roles that we have as mentors is to create a welcoming environment for them, and just being their first friends, first peers that they get to meet. And so that to me in that role was something that I thought I could help specifically coming from my experience, I guess. I come from parents who were international students at one point, so I felt that connection, and that's something that really drew me to this organization. And so that's I guess a personal experience that connected me to the organization, but also the purpose as well.
So I joined SJAC, again, Social Justice Advocacy Council, because that's something that I'm truly passionate about. Sahar kind of touched on this earlier, but you want to make sure you do things that really draw your own intrigue and your interest. And so some of the things I'm really passionate about is creating these conversations that are kind of hard and difficult to have, but they're crucial to like the advancement of like UAB and the greater student body. We're all from different backgrounds, walks of life, socioeconomic statuses. And so it's really cool that in SJAC, we're able to kind of highlight that. And then not only do we have the programming board that highlights like different programming efforts, but we also have the affiliate organization that really works at crafting like educational resources for cultural based organizations.
I didn't even know that about SCHEC, so thank you, Xavier. What were you saying, Sahar? Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Don't worry about it. I was going to talk about off-campus student council and why I decided to join. So when I first came to UAB, I recognized that there wasn't a lot of like representation for off-campus students. Like it felt like there were so many events happening, and it was like, oh, it's happening in the dorms, and then you're like, oh, okay, I guess I can't go to that. And so there was a lot of that feeling. And then when I heard about off-campus student council, it was actually through my sister. I realized that that would be a good outlet for me to kind of promote like all the opportunities we have for off-campus students, because we actually have a lot. We have a lot of different events that are dedicated to making off-campus students feel more involved. And I wanted to kind of be a source of like external, like pushing that information out. So that's kind of why I got involved in that.
Sweet. We're going to move on to our next question. So clearly you guys have come to this point where I've realized you want to be part of student leader selection. What piece of advice do you give these students to get through their interviews?
Well, I guess I'll start. I would say, first of all, just be confident. Obviously, you're going to be nervous. Everybody in the interview is nervous. So that's nothing you should be too worried about. I know for me, I just wanted to present myself in the best light possible, and I kind of added on to that. So just depending on how you are, be yourself and maybe add 10 or 100, whatever you feel is best. Just be confident, be yourself, because that's what they're looking for.
I would also just add too of just preparing, it's usual typical interview questions oftentimes that are asked. So nothing too stressful, something you can Google online. So just, yeah, familiarize yourself with interview questions. Yeah, so you feel most confident. I know with UPB in the past, we've done group interviews. So that kind of takes the stress off of just you versus a bunch of interviewers. So that you have peers with you who are kind of there to spark ideas in your mind, and you can build off what they're saying as well.
Yeah, and I would also add that really not only just be confident in yourself, but with whatever experience that you bring, be confident in that experience, and it will show in the interview, especially for any incoming freshmen or upcoming sophomores. Your experience may be limited on campus, specifically at UAB, but be confident in any experience that you have had at UAB. And if there is some experience that you have from high school that you think is really beneficial, be confident in that as well, and don't be afraid to talk about that in your interview.
I will say from like my end and like sitting sometimes on the panels, like evaluating the student leaders. I think one thing is like look at the position descriptions that are on the student leader selection engage page. Every single organization has a description, and it has like the specific things that they're looking for, like cultural humility, professionalism. So like go ahead and look at those and like think what those things mean to you, because you will be asked those questions if that's what they're looking for. So like that's usually a really helpful way to like prepare for your interviews. And I again, from my experience and from where I've sat in these interviews, like I could highly recommend doing that. But we'll go ahead and go on to the next question. And I think Helen made a really good point. Um, sh- so, what experiences did you have that helped you land your leadership position, whether that's other involvement, service, networking? What do you think helped you get to your current leadership position?
Okay. I know for me, I had prior involvement within the Honors College. So I was an Honors College Smart Leader, and I also served on the Honors College Leadership Council for 2 years. And during my first student leader selection, I only applied for Leadership and Service Council, and fortunately, I was selected. And then after that, I applied again for Leadership and Service Council, and then for the UAB Ambassador program. And for me, those experiences just kind of helped me to get my feet wet and get some experiences under my belt as a leader, and just to have more confidence with interviewing to finally apply for LSC again and ambassadors. So apply for whatever your heart desires.
I would also like to add that when you're a freshman, you're not going to have that many on-campus experiences yet. And so you could still utilize some of those high school roles and positions that you did before and kind of showcasing what skills you've learned in those roles, as well as kind of showcasing what do you want to learn in this new particular adventure that you're trying to go into, as well as trying to say like, what is your impact? What do you want to contribute to the team? And utilize the resources that we have around. So like right now, you're at this panel. So that's like already one resource where you're learning a little bit more insight into the organization. But you can also utilize your career advisor. I know Miss Brittany Blackstock, who works in the Career Center, she's my best friend for a reason. I go to her for resume help, interview prep regularly. She's somebody that you can utilize, and whoever your person is, go to them and ask them for help, and they will be honest with you. They won't tear you down or anything, but they will tell you what do you need to necessarily work on, and that constructive criticism is really crucial to like nailing the next interview.
I think it's also important to make sure when you're applying to whatever organization you're applying to that you do have some relevant experience in that kind of area, because that can help you a lot in your interview, because they will ask you about experiences that kind of relate to the organization. So like for ambassadors, they'll probably ask you about service, and you want to have done some service. So just make sure you're kind of aligning with the goals of the organization, kind of like what Helen was talking about earlier. Make sure you understand what you're signing up for and how your past experiences can contribute to it.
Speaking from like the experiences that y'all have had in your organizations, what would you say have been maybe what is like the biggest challenge or some of the biggest challenges of like being involved in your organization? And I know COVID can be an easier one to talk about because it's affected us all, but try to think something outside the box that's more about the organization involvement or trying to get the word out or events and things, the actual internal affairs.
So I can speak on international mentors. One of the biggest challenges we kind of get is attendance, specifically from international students, but also just attendance overall to some of our events. And a lot of that is due to the fact that the word is either not going out, or some students may feel reserved to not come. And so a lot of times when we have these events, we kind of get discouraged. After we have one event that no one comes. But that is very normal. And I would say that's very normal for most organizations who are planning events. And that isn't to say that these events aren't worth, I guess, planning for or doing. I think that's just the challenge that we face overall when it comes to engaging students on campus. A lot of times we have to think creatively, and especially with COVID, kind of going back to that, but with all of us being in a virtual setting, event planning is very different now. And so definitely the biggest tip for all of those kind of challenges is to kind of step back from the event, analyze what went wrong or what we need to do to reach out to more students and find creative ways to engage students as well.
Yeah, that's also a major problem that UPB has faced. I know, especially when I joined my first year, we did have a real big problem of getting people to come to our events. And so we've kind of, over the last couple of years, really just done like rebranding of our organization and really just getting our name out there. And I think another big tip is really just like not getting discouraged if your events don't turn out the way you're hoping them to. Because oftentimes you might think that it's a really great idea, but then students aren't really enjoying it as much as you'd hope. And so just be willing to hear their feedback and just take their feedback and run with it. And yeah, don't be afraid to change things up.
Okay, so getting a little bit more into COVID-19, we want to hear more about how your organization has been impacted by COVID-19 because I know we kind of mentioned it a little bit, but it's a reality that that's what it could look like in the fall. So, if y'all could go ahead and like talk about what this year has looked like for you.
So for SJAC, we kind of do more big programming efforts, such as like coming out on the green and Orca. And these are like big events in the hill or on the green. And so we had to kind of transition to this more online format. And like, especially with Orca, which is our more recent event that we just had, this was like an event with people from all across Alabama. Some people kind of traveled all the way here to like attend these sessions. But this year we had turned into a virtual format, and I remember our Orca coordinator has been working for months on trying to get established people. And even though, yeah, it was a little more difficult, kind of having to figure out the logistics. And as we all know, Zoom is very interesting, but it's all we got. But we were able actually to expand to even more of a global. We had people from outside the country attend the event and present on different issues. So that was like a unique experience that COVID allowed us to. And it also kind of allowed us to also explore different social media strategies on how to like showcase our own passions because we have a team of so many people. So like I'm interested in criminal justice rights and we have LGBTQ rights and people interested in immigration rights. And so through that, we can all take turns on social media promoting different educational resources and learning. So COVID did take a hit at first, but we're really learning how to manage. And so hopefully when we're out of the COVID pandemic era, we can still utilize some of the strengths that we've garnered through this and like passive programming efforts to kind of engage the public a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll say the marketing effort has definitely gone up with COVID-19. Even in the Pathfinder side, like we're trying to have content calendars where we have stuff every day. So it's definitely been a creative year for sure. So we actually got a question from someone in the audience. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Y'all are welcome to chime in. If you don't receive any offers for any positions this year, what are some steps to increase your chances to apply for next year?
I would say if you aren't selected for any of the organizations that you applied for, if you are still very interested in those organizations, reach out to the advisor of that organization and show your interest. They're not going to think you're weird or crazy. That just shows that you're very interested in their organization, and they can give you tips on how to do a better interview or new experience that you new experiences that you can gain prior to next year's interview. So definitely just reach out to the advisor, maybe even members of that organization, just to get some helpful advice.
It makes a difference if you've already applied once and you apply again, because the universe, like the student leader selection, they know that you've applied once already. They know, kind of can see what did you do in this next year, what was different. So yeah, definitely, I think it's a worth your time to apply again if you really identify with these organizations.
Yeah, and I would add on to Charity and say that specifically kind of looking for ambassadors, we do have a large focus on service. So continue to go on Blazer Pulse or go out into the community, get those community service hours or look for some service projects around campus. Those are some great things that you can do, not only for the community and for UAB, but just adding on that experience really helps build your credibility in that area and also shows that you're being very proactive in serving. And also take advantage of all the opportunities that SIL provides, SMDP provides. All of those organizations have so many events throughout the year. So your attendance to those will also be really crucial to how you can build that experience and help you in interviews or just preparing to reapply.
Also, I know specifically with UPB, we have a general body committee that we started this year, which is just an opportunity for students who, yeah, if they applied and didn't get a position, or if they're not sure that they want to be that involved, they can still kind of participate with our organization, kind of see the ins and outs, but they don't have the same commitment as an actual executive board member.
Yeah, I definitely like want to reemphasize what Emily said because that's something that people look at or like our advisors look at is are you still participating in the events that are hosted? Like, we have UPB and all these organizations here, but even the ones that aren't representative, like Serve 205, like their service events are listed on Blazer Pulse. So like definitely like try to be active in their organization still and like try to learn as much as you can so they can see that you really are interested and committed in joining that organization. And then putting in a plug, like after this process is over and say, unfortunately, you didn't get an offer, like that's, Pathfinders are still here to help you navigate like your future involvement. So like definitely meet with us because there's a lot of opportunities to get involved. We have over 250 student organizations and I'm sure they would all love to have you too. So be sure to like connect with us and we can kind of help you navigate what that looks like after student leader selection. Ron, would you like to ask the next question? Sorry about that.
Sure, I don't mind at all. I mean, this will be a very general question that you all can take a shot at. But what is the selection process like, and what are some factors that are taken into account?
So for the UAB ambassadors, our selection process is going through the student leader selection, having your application, your interview, and the interview is going to be with a panel, well, including our advisor and an outside guest that we invite. And throughout that process, then you'll be selected at the end. And some of the factors that go in are definitely your resume. We look at resume GPA, but also a lot of the focus is on your application and interview. So make sure you take some time to prepare for those and definitely just look out for the application that is going to be due very soon.
So we've actually just added Lauren as a panelist. Lauren is one of the advisors for the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership, and she also helps oversee student leader selection. So I know some questions are very advisor specific, so we're going to let her answer those. Lauren, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Marianne, for letting me join the panelists. So as Marianne said, my name is Lauren Cotant. I do work in the Student Involvement Office, and I actually chair the student leader selection process. So what that means is I kind of organize this for all of the organizations with the support of some other advisors. And so I directly advise the ambassadors, Serve 205, the Leadership and Service Council, Blazers on Break Executive Board, Freshman Forum. I'm sure I've left someone out. Lots of organizations, UAB Ambassadors. Don't think I gave them the shout out. So it's my pleasure to be here and I'll be happy to answer any questions you'll have.
I guess going back to the question that was just asked by Rom, like, what exactly are we looking for, like in the interviews and in the process in general?
Yeah, so I would say that this is a great question. You should not just ask in this panel, but ask the advisor for the specific organization you're applying to. When you apply for something, there's typically a set of criteria that that advisor or selection panel is using to evaluate your application and then to evaluate your interview. I'll use an example. The UAB ambassadors, for example, might be looking for communication as an area of criteria that might be something specific they're looking for in the interview. Whereas on the application, they might be looking for a commitment to community service. And so if it's not clear through the application what criteria or what skills that organization's looking for, shoot an email to the advisor for that group and just say, hey, I just want to better understand what exactly you all are looking for so I can be my most authentic self, but also best represent the experiences I've had. And so that's a great question. I can't say that there's one set of criteria or skills or qualities that every organization, because there's 20 organizations participating in student leader selection, they do vary, but it's something that is a fair question that you should feel comfortable asking. And so if you've applied to one of my organizations, feel free to send me an email. I'd be glad to point that out further to you so that you can be best prepared through both the application and interview. The process itself, I would encourage you to be prepared. And so that would include reviewing the membership description. Typically, that's where you're going to see some of that criteria outlined. If you want to access membership descriptions, they're on the Student Leader Selection Engage page. If you scroll down on that page, you'll find them under documents. If you can't find it, I'm sure you could reach out to Rom, Marianne, or myself, and we could point you in the right direction. Also, look at the organization's website to have a better understanding of what their purpose is. That's going to help you be a prepared applicant to respond to questions in a way that will align with the criteria they're looking for.
Thank you, Lauren. And while we're here with Lauren, we're just going to go ahead and ask her like very specific questions, and we may have the panelists give their spill if it's relevant. But Lauren, will there be equal chances for students to gain leadership opportunities regardless of their grades?
So grades do factor into this. Again, each organization may differ a little bit. And so most of the organizations in the Student Involvement Office, and I believe in the SMDP office, require a minimum GPA. Typically, that's a 2.5. We set that because not that we're trying to say if you have a higher GPA, you'll be a better leader. That's not really the case. But it's important and critical that you are making academics your priority. Involvement should never be prioritized above your academics. If you have that minimum 2.5 GPA, that tells your advisors of these potential organizations that you've been able to balance your academics with other things you're already involved in, whether it's student employment, organizations, etc. Without that 2.5, we're going to encourage you to put more focus on your academics and then just participate in involvement opportunities such as the events these organizations are hosting rather than serving in a leadership role. If you have a lower GPA and you're concerned that might prevent you from being accepted, as long as you meet the minimum requirement, you're qualified. If it's lower than the minimum requirement, my, again, recommendation to you would be to focus on your academics, but come out to events like Into the Streets, GGUAB's, I cannot think, con event. Sorry, it just left me. But different things that these different groups have going on, that you can still engage with the organization while still having the time needed to focus on your academics.
Sweet. Lauren, I'm going to ask you our next advisor question. The application asks for our weekly time commitment. Will I be penalized for not selecting the max amount of hours?
No, so that's really just for us to have an idea of how many hours you think you might have to give to this. And so that when we're reviewing your application, we're not scoring you based on that in any way. We just want to make sure you've thought about this is going to be a time commitment and that you at least have a little bit of time to commit to the role. And so that in no way would prevent you from being selected for an interview or selected overall. We just want you to start thinking critically about, this isn't a job, but it is a commitment. And you do have the time needed in your schedule to provide to the organization the leadership you're sharing that you're interested in.
Could any of the other panelists kind of talk about their weekly time commitments? Just each org kind of say what their commitment looks like.
So for ambassadors, we utilize a weekly meeting system, and I know now we've adjusted to bi-weekly currently. So we have a meeting, it's about an hour, not necessarily too much longer, but something that's really crucial to the ambassador experience is that our VP of administration, whenever we have opportunities, she will send out a spreadsheet and you will indicate whether or not you're available, and you'll put yes or no, and then she'll also assign people. So that way we can kind of gauge, and then the VP of administration also kind of keeps track of making sure everyone has like the same level of commitment throughout the semester. So if you're kind of lower on hours, they will try to make sure that you're priority for like the next events. And so they're just trying to make sure that everyone's kind of equal. And you can either say yes or no if you are available or if you're not. And then with the volunteer requirements, you could do those on your own time or volunteer through the ambassador program in different like group activities. And so it kind of just really, like the ambassador program coming in, I didn't know how flexible it was going to be. And then this year it was way more flexible than I expected. And I've been able to properly maintain my academics and overall just have fun with the activities we've been able to do.
With UPB, we have bi-weekly meetings as well on Mondays, but that usually changes depending on everyone's availability. We kind of decide that once the organization comes together. And then before COVID, we kind of had office hours that would be required by each member depending on what your position was. But since COVID, that can't really happen. So we kind of do on our off weeks, you submit like a bi-weekly report of the things that you've been working on your own time for the organization, whether planning events, reaching out to vendors, things like that, just to keep up to date on what your involvement level has been. I will say that communication is just really key in UPB, of just communicating like how your workload is looking, if you think you're going to be slacking a little bit because of academics, or if you have more time to give, reaching out to other team members and saying, hey, like I can take this off your plate if you need extra help. I think that's one of the really big things among UPB and our team.
Okay, well, thank y'all for sharing that perspective. It is a little different for every single organization. So again, that position descriptions, and then if you didn't get the chance to like review their preview, that was also in the student leader selection engage page. That's a good way to kind of figure out how much they commit weekly. So Lauren, I'll go ahead and ask you the last organization questions, or last specific question for you. How many organizations can I apply to, and what is a reasonable amount to apply to?
This is a great question, and I can't answer that for you, but I can tell you, you will only be selected for no more than 3. And so I'll share a little bit of reason why. In the past, every year, we not only ask you to maintain your grades, but we track your grades. And so you will sign like a grade release through your application. It's a little check, not really a signature, but affirming you release your grades to the Student Involvement Office or the Office of SMDP or Off-Campus Student Services, depending on what department you're applying to. At the end of each semester, we'll pull your semester GPA, and we're going to look and see how many students' GPAs have fallen below a 2.5 or below a 3.0. Over the years, as we've tracked this data, we've recognized that students who have been members of 3 or more organizations have consistently lower GPAs than students who are only in a member of 2 or maybe just 1 organization. Because of this, we've started making the recommendation that you do limit yourself to leadership roles in 3 organizations, 3 or fewer. And so we're not going to select you for more than 3, but you can apply to 5, you could apply to 8 if you want to. But at the end of the application, you're going to have to list your preferences. So there'll be a drop-down menu for every organization you applied to. You have to say, are they your first preference, second preference, or third preference, or they're not one of your top 3 preferences. We're going to take into account your preferences when we're assigning you if you're selected. So if you apply to be a Pathfinder, you list the Pathfinders as your number 1 preference, and they list you on their list, we're going to match you with the Pathfinders, and that's what organization you'll be assigned to. And so, again, I can't tell you how many. I think it depends on your interest. I don't encourage you to just blanket apply for everything. That's very time consuming for you. And we know you're not going to be accepted into everything. We want to maximize those opportunities for everyone. And so maybe focus in on your top 3. But again, if you want to apply to more than that, you can.
Thank you, Lauren, for sharing your insight. One last thing before you leave. As an advisor, what is the best piece of advice you can give to any student that's applying?
Oh, this is a tough one. So I would say be prepared. And the one thing that really will set someone aside, in my opinion, is if I think that they've done their research before they apply. And so I'll give you an example. When I'm reading applications, it's time consuming for you all to submit those. It's also time consuming for your advisor selection committee to read them. I really value when I can tell someone's being thoughtful in their responses, that they know a little bit about the organization, that they've asked questions to other members about the organization. That comes across in the way you respond to questions, whether it's in the application or later in your interview. And so go to the organization's website, read the membership descriptions, connect with other members, just like you attending this panel tonight are setting you up for success, and be prepared. Also, I've found that preparation gives you confidence. And that's a big part of this battle, right? Is just feeling confident in your abilities and being able to articulate those to others. We know that every UAB student has the qualities needed to be successful in these roles, but it is a selective process because there's more of you than what we have opportunities to give out. And so put your best self forward by being authentic and being prepared, by having done your research and talked with other students who've served in that role before. And never hesitate to ask a question if you have it. Questions are welcomed and they're okay.
Well, thank you, Lauren. I hope you have a great rest of the day, but thank you for joining us, and I'm sure the students really appreciated your input. See you around, Lauren. Okay.
You didn't even say bye.
I know, but Ram, if you want to go ahead and ask the next question.
For sure. So the next.
I'm still here.
Oh. I just accidentally changed her back to an attendee. She's gonna fire me. Oh no.
So the next question, we got a question in the chat. Kind of touched on it briefly, but it'll be better to talk a little bit more about it. How can we best prepare for the interview? What types of questions should we expect? And before I go on, just remember, these questions are going to be a little more specific to the organization itself, so you can kind of gauge what you might be asked.
I think just as a general rule, we've talked about this a lot, but it's so important, so I'm just going to say it again. Just make sure you know the mission of the organization and kind of what they're committed to and what they're all about, because you're going to get questions that are surrounding that. So when you're applying for ambassadors, you're going to get questions that are about community service and about commitment and time management and different things like that. If you're applying for like off-student council, you're going to get questions about what type of events you've attended as an off-campus student and how that's impacted like how you view the organization. So just make sure you know the mission of the organization and what they're representing, and that'll go a long way.
I would say know yourself. Obviously, you want to have some strengths and some weaknesses in your back pocket, and be able to speak to those, know your best qualities, be able to talk about a specific experience that illustrates that quality, and be able to, paint a picture for the interviewers so they actually know that you walk the talk, you know what I'm saying? And so just have your stuff together, know who you are, don't go in there not knowing who you are. Specifically for Leadership and Service Council, know what service means to you, a service project that you've loved, know the meaning of it, not just the dictionary meaning, but just what it means to you. And that's going to say a lot of who you are to the interviewers.
So one thing I would add for international mentors and a lot of other organizations that are like mentorship programs, one thing that you need to focus on is why you want to be a mentor. And I think being a mentor is sounds easier than it actually is. And so I think definitely if you are thinking about applying to these programs, remember that you are applying to be a mentor to a student or multiple students. So definitely engage different ways that you want to help these students, what strategies or events you would like to see that will benefit these students and guide these students as well. So that's one kind of difference that this kind of program has.
So kind of going off what Helen was saying, especially with like other SMDP program organizations, they really want to see like, what do you want to do in the role? So kind of know exactly what are you truly passionate about? Why are you passionate about these certain areas, such as international mentors and international students, or social justice passions, or free food for thought? Like, make sure you know exactly what you're passionate about. And what are some strategies, whether or not they will be able to work or not, you still want to already have those preconceived in your head to know like, oh, so if I am in this position, I want to be able to do this, and this is how I want to do it, because they want to see how much you put in, like, again, like Lauren mentioned earlier, how much effort are you putting in? What experience are you bringing to the org? So I would say definitely think about those things ahead of time.
And again, be prepared to answer the tell me about yourself question, because that is a tough one, and it's always the first question that they will ask you. But like, it's always like, it gives you an opportunity to talk about yourself, again, why you want to be a part of an organization, and just it shows your personality. Like that's the first impression that a lot of interviewers will get. So go ahead and be prepared to answer that question. But we'll move on to the next question. This is a little bit more logistical. So most of your organizations have meeting times, if I am correct. So when are meeting times confirmed for your organization, and how are those times determined?
So mine will be really quick. So for ambassadors, our meeting times and days are set, I think, in the application. So in our application, our meetings are Wednesdays at 5:15, and we encourage anyone who is applying to be an ambassador to go ahead and plan their next semester to fit that meeting time. And I would say that many other orgs kind of have a similar process, but we do, I guess, in the semester accommodate for certain ambassadors or certain students who have a conflict. And so it just really depends on your communication with the leadership team.
With UPB, once everyone is kind of selected, we do like an initial meet and greet, so you can kind of get familiar with everyone that's on the team. And that's kind of when we decide what our meeting times will be. So it's kind of based on, everyone will submit their class schedule, work schedule, things like that. And then we'll kind of just do a poll and see what time works best for everyone. And then it'll just stay consistent throughout the semester.
Leadership and Service Council is similar to UPB. So the meeting time is selected after the group has been selected. So everyone submits their schedule, assess when they're available, and then we do a poll, and then that'll be the meeting time. And then meetings are usually bi-weekly or weekly, depending on if there's an event coming up.
Well, thank you for that. And one of the last questions that we have, and this is ambassador specific, we have a lot of people interested in ambassadors. So what type of events will I work as a potential ambassador? So you can talk about what that's looked like in COVID-19, and also what that's looked like before COVID hit.
So I'll talk a little bit before COVID hit. So I was a first year ambassador last year, and many of the events that we work are athletic events, alumni receptions, scholarship receptions, any big I like UAB Day or UAB Scholarship Day. We also work some, I guess, business related ones as well. Sometimes we get asked by Birmingham City partners with UAB, and we work with their events as well. So it really depends on the year, but um, specifically the ones that we work the most are going to be athletic events and UAB hosted events.
I can talk a little bit about the during COVID experience. So, it's still kind of like the same types of events where we're handling different kinds of patrons. It's not really student centered. It's more that we're talking to adults and like officials and people like that. We have had athletic events this semester too, but they've been like reduced to a great amount. It's kind of the same experience, just to like a much smaller degree, I guess.
Thank you for that. I guess something like that was mentioned in the chat was like, will my previous service related in GPA be enough to be selected overall for the ambassadors organization? Um, so well, I say we, but I think it's a holistic overview of who you are as a person. It goes beyond like what your grades are, how much service you've committed. That's why, they say prepare for your interviews, like, know why you're going into, like, why you want to be a part of the organization, what you're passionate about, because they look at everything, like they're not going to compare GPAs and be like, well, this person has a higher GPA, let's take them. Like, that's not what they're looking for. So, um, like we've mentioned, the whole panel is just be prepared for whatever, and just be prepared to show your true self, because that is like the best way to get into an organization is be yourself and be prepared. So I will let Ram ask the last question before we wrap it up.
All right, for our last question, and this will be more of like a happy one for everyone to answer. What has been your favorite part about being in your organization? Or what is your favorite part of being in your organization or department you've served in for the student leader selection process?
Definitely for me, it's just planning an event and then seeing it come to fruition. Definitely before COVID, it was much more satisfying to see, just because, yeah, we would throw a huge event and see all the students come and have a lot of fun. And I would just get to see and hear how everyone is, yeah, just having a great time, getting to meet new people. Because our events are really just centered around something stress relieving and fun for students to do on campus that's free. So yeah, that's probably one of the best parts about this organization. After COVID, it's been a little different, but I mean, we've definitely had our struggles trying to plan events that are engaging and just as fun as in person. But it's still been a lot of fun to see students enjoy what we're doing, and just hear their feedback. So yeah.
I think my favorite part is just working with a team. Like we have so many people from different like grade levels, different backgrounds, and just so many people you probably wouldn't have been friends with had you not worked on a team. It's just getting to know their experiences and like how funny they are, how humorous they are, how loving and caring and supportive. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from like all the orgs, that you will be working on such a cool team dynamic. And every org has a different dynamic, but the one thing we're really focused on is supporting each other. And that's the one thing like I'm really glad that all of the orgs have done is brought us together as one like big community.
I think for me, pretty much the same thing. Definitely team building is such a big aspect to any organization. And I would say for both the organizations I'm in, that was something that I saw at the very end of the year was the top, I guess, most rewarding thing about being inside the organization. It's all the relationships you build. And also, specifically for me with international mentors, I thought it was just really cool talking to international students from a whole different culture, and just learning more about everything outside of UAB and how they feel coming to UAB as well. So that was also another rewarding treat.
Hey, if no one else wants to answer, I'll say that I've only worked in the Office of Involvement and Leadership, but it's a lot of fun. All the advisors um, will interact with you, they'll be friendly with you, and they want the best for you. So, like, advisors like the UPB advisor, like, I've never worked under her at all, but she is so nice to me all the time, and she always ropes me into everything. So, like, you really do, like, get the best of all the organizations, if you're a part of a specific department. Because I said, like, earlier, like, there's a lot of collaboration, but the advisors will work with you as well. So I just think it's like one big happy family in general. What if
Like no one talks about that. Like I have the privilege to work on campus, and seeing them come down for lunch or going, it's a very, very like social and very lively. Like I'm always telling them upstairs, like come down, come see us, we're a lot cooler.
I kind of just want to reemphasize what everyone else was saying. Like, honestly, the people are really the best part of every organization. And I think that's just one of the best consistencies that you can see because you're getting so many different experiences. And like Xavier was saying, like, I probably wouldn't have known half of these people if it hadn't been for these organizations. And so it's really interesting to think about how it kind of turns your life around in a different direction and it exposes you to all these really awesome people.
Well, thank you all for being here, to our panelists for taking the time of your day to answer our questions for our students, to our attendees for showing interest in student leader selection. We wish you the best as you go through the process. I'm sure y'all are going to do great. As a reminder, the applications do close this Sunday. So if you haven't submitted it, go and submit it. And if you're still wanting to learn more about a specific organization, I know we couldn't have all of them here, definitely reach out to I'm going to say an email in a little bit, but reach out to that email and we can connect you with any student leaders. That I know some of those questions are very specific to an org, and we want to make sure those questions are answered. So you can always email you. Hold on. I'm about to put an email, or UAB Pathfinder email will connect you with anyone. And if you have any questions at all about student leader selection, go ahead and email getinvolved@uab.edu. But yeah, thank y'all for being here, and we wish you the best of luck. Go Blazers. Bye.